Well, we're pleased today to invite you to a conversation, a fireside chat with Brian Hanna, the acting executive director of the Cannabis Regulatory Agency here in the state of Michigan. Brian, it's great to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're honored to have you and discuss some of the priorities of the CRA, what you're focused on, and maybe if you want to start with an update on the state of things here in the state of Michigan, give us an opportunity to hear from you.
Sure. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this event. I really appreciate it. For those that don't know me, I'm Brian Hanna. I'm acting director of the CRA. I'm a Michigander, born in Dearborn, raised in Belleville, and started my career in Kalamazoo, and 20 years later, here I am. I think media has done a good job sharing, my professional background. Yes, law enforcement, military, but there's more to this. I was one of the founding members of this agency in 2017. Came on board before we took our very first medical marijuana facility application. And I'll tell you, I saw the potential of this industry immediately. See job opportunities, community engagement opportunities, safe access to product for patients and consumers. And these are important to all of us, including me. And, I'll let you in on something too. I am a combat veteran and I do have PTSD. And the support this industry provides for all who suffer from some traumatic event in their lives, it's invaluable. What your services and industry provide are invaluable. And for that, I say thank you. As far as, our current goals and moving forward, this is a legitimate industry and it should be taken seriously. And with that, there are a few in this industry that are cutting corners, and that can't happen. And we need to ensure that those that are following the rules are supported, and those that are not are held accountable. And so we are increasing our enforcement efforts. We're hiring more staff, training more staff, conducting more unannounced inspections. And so we've been very public, including myself, about a stronger presence in the businesses and stronger enforcement. But that's not all. We're also examining the rules and looking for areas of improvement. We want to open those up in 2023. So any feedback is always beneficial to our agency. And that's part of one of our goals too, is stakeholder engagement. Continue to listen to stakeholders, identify what is working, what is not working. There's conversations about moratorium of growth. The details matter. Ultimately, it's up to legislators, and we look forward to, facilitating those communications and those discussions. We want to continue to participate with cannabis regulators associations. That's what we do. In fact, we have a meeting coming up here pretty soon with them. And, it's good to know what lessons are learned in other states and what can we take back for us. And so I say those are our current goals. What I want to do in the future as well is, we received feedback of production batch definition and multiple metric tags for multiple production batches are not desirable. We're working on internally on how we can, identify, what we can do moving forward. Social equity, what else can we do to incentivize participation and make continual improvements? And how do we engage municipalities that are not opted in yet? And I would say for those municipalities or any municipalities in general in the state of Michigan, we do have a video on our website at michigan.gov/CRA. There is a video that is there in our video library that is a 2-hour production that provides information to municipalities. So that in a nutshell is kind of a status of where we are and where we're moving ahead. And thanks for having me.
I appreciate the introduction and the background, Brian. It's important to get an understanding about who you are and your priorities for 2023. One thing I'd like to kind of unpack a little bit is this illicit market that's hitting our state. Obviously, it's something that's been going on for many years. How can the CRA and what are some of the enforcement efforts that your team will prioritize for 2023?
Sure. So it's multifaceted, right? When someone says illicit product, it is either outside of the industry or touching the industry in some way. And so us as a regulatory body with the CRA, we have regulatory responsibility for the businesses that are regulated by us. We also work with our partners, Michigan State Police. Think of it as kind of like a Venn diagram. They have their enforcement efforts on law enforcement purely outside of the regulated market. We have ours inside the regulated market, but there are opportunities there where we both work together and communicate instances in which that we may believe that illicit market materials are making it into the regulated market. And so I want to increase that cooperation with the state police in sharing information. And we have been sharing information with them since we started. We have a great relationship. What we want to do is we hear the concerns. I would say that an eye-opener was the public meeting in September where people were talking openly, I think for the very first time, about proliferation or the idea that illicit market materials are making it in the regulated market. We want to stop that. And so we're doing it in a couple of different ways. One, listening to stakeholders, listening to information. I am an all-source intelligence officer by trade, by background. And so we take all information that we can, and that's from various different sources, whether it's be from people that are providing us tips, whether it's looking into the statewide monitoring system. We do have a request for proposal or RFP coming out here pretty soon for a pilot program of a software capability that could help us looking at compliance data and tax data as well. So that will be coming out here pretty soon. That could be a useful tool to help us out in the pilot program. At the same time, it's also unannounced inspections, going to businesses and taking our additional staff that we are hiring, and we are hiring more field staff, agents, which are investigators, officers, which are inspectors, additional scientists, support staff too, because we need support staff. If you increase your investigations, we need support staff in our legal section to help facilitate the movement of administrative materials for possible disciplinary action. So, and it's engaging. It's being transparent. It's saying, this is what we're doing. This is what is important to industry, that those that are following the rules are supported, those that are not need to be held accountable. And so it's a multifaceted effort, basically trying to make this industry succeed in the ways that those that are following the rules are supported.
Yeah, we appreciate that being a high priority for you. I know I can speak on behalf of the attendees hearing this message in the room that they certainly want to see that prioritized, your enforcement of the illicit market. They invested their money in this state and an opportunity in the industry, and they're looking for support from the state so that they can protect what they're doing and they can build upon it and create more jobs and support their local communities. I know that's very important to our attendees and to a lot of our the folks in our network. Can you talk for a moment? Earlier, you mentioned a partnership and working with key stakeholders throughout the state. If you could elaborate on that a little bit more on what they can expect or what you'd like them to do in terms of a partnership with the CRA and your team.
Sure. So we have various stakeholder events or I'd say meetings that happen on a regular basis. People can reach out to the agency and always provide us feedback. It's an all source type of thing, kind of like what I talked about earlier. It's, I value stakeholder feedback, honesty and transparency, and we'll be as transparent as we possibly can. Obviously, we're not going to be able to talk about litigation or open investigations, but to that matter, it's open dialogue between stakeholders that have a vested interest in this business environment, and for the CRA to be successful in supporting the businesses and regulate it, we need to be open to feedback, and so I value open communications.
Well, we will certainly communicate with the attendees at today's event and deliver for you a group of leaders that are eager to participate and be open, honest, and transparent, and to help support the efforts of the CRA. I know that for many of the business owners, just looking at simple supply and demand throughout the state, they would certainly encourage to see a moratorium happen on grow licenses specifically. What is the CRA's position on a moratorium?
So our position is to take feedback and facilitate discussions. It's what we've been doing in any discussions and anybody we have, whether it's legislators, stakeholders, anybody. It's facilitating the communications of what people think is important. There are things that need to be recognized. The details are very important. At what point would we start it? At what point would we end it? Who would be cut out? Who would not be cut out? I think there's also something that needs to be brought up as well. I think looking at Oregon's reports that they put out of their moratorium and what they did and what the results have been. And granted, they're still analyzing the results and the effectiveness of that moratorium, but I do recommend people read those reports. One thing that I learned is that when a moratorium was announced, they received approximately 459 applications on the day of which the moratorium was supposed to take place, the last day people could apply. So that could affect the CRA as well. If we receive an influx of application materials the last day that applications could be received for a grow, could that delay the possible effectiveness of moratorium? I don't know. I would just say that we're here to facilitate the communications and let people know that at the end of the day, the details really matter.
And how is your working relationship with the legislation, the new legislative body that's going to be coming into office, taking place on January 1? We're shifting the balance of power as really all three chambers are now with the Democratic Party. Have you had discussions with any of our legislators, with the leaders, Speaker Tate, Senate Majority Leader, just to kind of understand a little bit more about what they might be willing to do to support some changes? Because on behalf of a lot of the attendees in the room tonight, changes need to come to this industry, and we need to make our best efforts so that they can continue to thrive in their investments and their commitments to our state.
Sure. We continue to have informal discussions with legislators and look forward to future discussions in the future. As of right now, the time at which we're talking is November. We've got December, January. I look forward to future discussions. We're open. We're open to communicate with anybody, stakeholder wise, including legislators. And so, there have been talks in the past and look forward to future ones as well.
Well, great. We appreciate the conversation and the introduction to members of our Power Connections in Cannabis program. Do you have any final thoughts or any last updates for the group?
Sure. Thank you so much for your time. Really, the CRA really cares about this industry. We're working very hard. There's always room for improvement for everybody. We appreciate open dialogue and communication and keeping the pulse on the industry of, what is important, not just now, the future, but long term. And so we're prepared to keep engaging, have great customer service, respond back as soon as we can with accurate information. And again, we put out information. For example, we put out information recently about break-ins. It's not to cause an alarm. It's not to say that this industry is different than others. Crime happens in all of society, but we just wanted to make sure everybody was safe. Part of the reason why we want to put that information out there is we don't want anybody to get hurt. That would just be an awful scenario. So just remain open in dialogue. We really care, and we're here to do the best that we possibly can, and together we're all in this together.
One final question, because you mentioned you don't want people to get hurt. A lot of people are being hurt in their pocketbooks right now. There's a tremendous amount of accounts receivable out there on behalf of several of these vertically integrated operators who are working with, sometimes people are not paying them 60, 90 days, sometimes even longer. Is there anything that the CRA can do to implement a program, a rule that they could implement that could help support collection of money? I mean, without people collecting money, they can't stay in business. They can't pay their employees. This is a big challenge for a lot of the operators. Is there anything that the CRA can do to support? I know that the liquor license, after maybe 30, 60 days, they may even find their license or suspend it. Is there any kind of program or rule that the CRA is considering to help support the accounts receivable issue that a lot of our retailers and operators are facing?
I appreciate the feedback on that. Right now we don't have the regulatory authority over that per se. It is a civil matter. Now, we do have in our rules that any judgments of these matters need to be reported to us in a timely fashion, and it can lead to disciplinary action. So I appreciate that feedback. I would say that's what we currently have, and then that's the model that we've been operating on.
Well, again, we appreciate the conversation today with Brian Hanna, Acting Executive Director of the Cannabis Regulatory Agency here in the state of Michigan. Brian, we wish you all the very best for 2023 and beyond. Thank you for what you're doing for our state, for the industry, and on behalf of small business operators throughout the state and at our event. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.